space conversations.
where real life happens in between everything else. I'm
I'm
Jennifer,
Ashley.
and this is the space where we talk about all the things that don't always have a place.
And in between moments, the real life conversations and the stuff we're actually navigating.
Because life isn't just work and it isn't just home.
There's a whole lot that happens in between.
And today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're pressing pause, and pause is not a button that Ashley or I really usually have. So we're pressing pause,
Nope.
not because the year's over, but because we're halfway through it. And sometimes the most important thing we can do is stop long enough to notice where we actually are.
Yeah. And I think taking an inventory of where we thought we would be versus, where we've ended up and maybe where we need to change or keep going.
Right. Um, so I think that, life showed up and it had its own agenda. And today, we're not talking about any kind of judgment, or we're not talking about grading ourselves. Obviously, this is just about, what has the year been teaching you. We're not trying to measure success against any kind of an imaginary timeline. And today really is just about curiosity. Um,
Yeah. Just seeing where we've gone and where we still have yet to go and
yeah,
celebrating some successes along the way.
absolutely. So every January we create a picture, we set resolutions, right? I know for me, I usually spend in my business the end of the year is you generally pretty quiet if we're not trying to make some major tax things happen for people at the very last minute. And so I spend a lot of time kind of looking back at my year and trying to set some resolutions or goals for the coming year. And by June, usually what's happened is a whole different story, right?
Yep. It looks completely different than what you thought it would in that idyllic winter moments waiting for the sun to come back.
Right. So, maybe some of the goals didn't happen at all. Some of them, but that doesn't automatically mean that we failed in any way. Sometimes life just redirects us toward other lessons that we didn't know we needed to learn.
Yeah.
um,
And
yeah.
I
So
also
what?
think that it also gives us an opportunity again. Look at some of the successes. Where did you maybe make some strides? Maybe you didn't plan to make a stride, but you found a success along the way that you didn't know was hiding there for you.
Absolutely. Can you think of anything like that that's happened for you so far this year, Ashley?
Oh man, yeah, this year's been crazy already, right? Halfway through the year, definitely not what I thought my year was going to look like. My oldest is living out of state right now with some other family, getting to experience what life is like as an independent person. Would not have at all foreseen that earlier in the year. Would have definitely thought that that was just not even on the docket.
Right.
And I consider that a success, to have my oldest kid out in the world. I think that that's fantastic. And, he's learning some tools and he's having to spread his wings without having like the cushion of us there. Um, Ben and I are working on new business things and we've come a long way and that's always fantastic. I'm getting to spend more time with the kids without having to have split focus, really taking those goals of focusing on my family and spending time with them and not always being so external or pleasing outside.
Right.
That's really been a great focus that I don't think I could have articulated the same way. And I know every year I'm the most guilty about being like, this is the year I'm going to spend with my family. And every year I'm like, I've got 3 million other things I want to do. They'll be there. And so it's been kind of nice that the year, in its very own kind of warm way or cold way, depending on how you might look at it, has
Right.
made that a reality. And it's been a joy to be having that time and to, like I said, see my oldest kind of sprout some wings. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, I think the gap between my expectations and what actually is happening is pretty broad.
Yeah.
I know, like you mentioned, we had a lot of discussion about this being the fire horse year and the energy, right, that
Ugh.
we wanted to bring into the year, and I was kind of like my whole uh, thought process or my whole energy coming into 2026 was very much, hey, we're going to kick butt and take names, right, and
We
The
asked for a
has
big
big
year.
has been mine and yours. So maybe we're kicking each
Oh
other's
yeah.
butts.
Yeah, but
And
like I said, we asked for that. And I think that's one of those things that, I know we focus on at our beginning of year kind of goal setting is what would you be willing to sacrifice
yeah,
to meet these goals, right? And that's always a really interesting question because it's like, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, so I'll give up Twinkies or, whatever. But we really came into this year with some strong ambitions. We were like, we are going to ride this fire horse, flames
right.
and all. We are going to do things right. And and it has definitely shown up, not maybe in the ways we thought it would have, but in all of the ways that I think were needed. We've definitely had our backs against the walls in different ways at different times, but it has
Right.
forced us to grow, to recognize different things, force us to become or see things in ourselves and in each other that maybe we didn't know were there, and I'm in that state where, I try to consider myself highly introspective, right? I try to be like, okay, let me think about why did I do that and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been the year where I'm like, no, just do better, do different, do more, like whatever it is, just instead of us having to parse everything out every 5 seconds,
Right.
just acknowledge it, accept it, go with it or don't, right? But don't have to describe or have a reason. There doesn't have to be a novel to every decision that gets made in the world. We just have to go with it. We asked for a big year. It has delivered, and now it's our job to hold on or fall off.
Right, right. I think that, you're kind of touching on something that is really important there. Like, when we think about growth, what has grown in you and I, and probably a lot of the people that are listening to us right now this year, is that, growth doesn't necessarily have to show up as an achievement. Sometimes it really just shows up kind of as an awareness. And you were really just speaking to maybe the awareness is I don't have to know the answers for why I'm here.
Yeah,
You know,
growth
the fact is
hurts,
I'm
right?
here.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it hurts.
Yeah, and just being there, being present, being willing to show up for it, even when it hurts, even when it's hard, being willing to put in the time and do the things, right? No matter how difficult that may be, that in and of itself is growth. That in and of itself is a celebration worth having,
Right.
even if it is just something that small of like, okay, cool, I got through today and I'm capable and willing to face another day, right? And I think those small achievements are worth being awarded because there's so many days, I know from my experience, I've woken up and I'm like, I don't want to today.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be able to grow past that, to be excited and willing to accept it for what it is and push through.
Yeah. So I think, sometimes when we're looking, and we've talked a lot about some of these kind of areas this year, and like having that awareness, sometimes the growth shows up as what you've learned, right? What you
Yeah.
want, what you don't want. We learn who we can count on, and that really is a way that we grow. And oftentimes we grow when we're counting on somebody, and then they don't come through, right? So we have to grow through maybe the challenge that's there that we have to deal with on our own.
Yeah.
Uh, what drains us? What energizes you? What matters and what doesn't? That all of those areas are areas where I have done a lot of growth and learning over the past 6 months.
Yeah. Every detour, surprise, something that took longer or less time than expected,
Yeah.
that is a growth. And as long as you're willing to face that and still push forward and still reach towards your goals, there is a beauty innately in that and a joy innately in that if you can accept it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And a lot of times when we're growing, it's not visible, right? It's not visible from the outside. It's the most important changes are happening internally.
Yep.
And, we can't expect the world to see them. And a lot of times we can't see them while they're happening. It's not until we're kind of coming out of the other side of a storm that we realize that, hey, I did that. I grew through that, and I am so happy or proud of myself for coming through some of those situations, and that is really growth.
And that's the best thing we can do, right? Is accept, hey, not every misstep, not every misplan, not every letdown or detour is a failure. And I think a lot of times those languages of like get mistranslated. It's not a failure, it's a growth. It's a learning opportunity. It is a chance to reflect. Was that really right for you? Like
Right.
was that really the thing you really wanted? Like honestly, And I think if you can have that honestly with your community and with yourself, that allows you to stay on course to what you really truly need to value and be doing. A So it allows you to then kind of let go of the other things that maybe you told yourself were important, but maybe you realized weren't really as important. And you could just kind of let that go. You could pick it up another time. Maybe you really love needle pointing profane sayings, right? Like, okay, cool. Maybe this isn't the year for that. Like, maybe you need to focus on what you need to do to build your career, or focus on spending time with your family, or focus on whatever that may be. Yeah, it's cool your Etsy's doing great, but like maybe this isn't the year for that. You'll still love it next year if it's truly something you love.
Yeah, so you make me think about one of my very favorite questions to ask around mid-year, in any time we're kind of in the middle of something, is, what am I carrying that no longer belongs to me? What do I not want to take into the second half of this year? And for me, that is important, because a lot of times we, keep carrying things because we've carried them for a long time, and that's what is expected of us.
Yeah.
And old obligations or old disappointments that we carry, and the old stories that we tell about ourselves, can really be debilitating. And I've had to let go of some things already this year. And I'm grateful. I'm always grateful when I can look at something and go, you know what, I don't have to carry that anymore. I can put that down. Or
Yeah.
that was never true. Why was I holding on to that? And like an example of this is, and I know I've referred to it as you and I have had these conversations, is, I have built my practice. I did a great job of building my practice when I was up in the DFW area. And when I moved to Austin, I kind of thought that I needed to do it completely differently, right? For some reason, I thought I needed to market and strategize and do all these things so much differently. And where I'm at with it is, why in the world did I tell myself that I needed to do it differently? Why am I not doing what I was already successful at?
Yeah.
And that really is one of the things that I am letting go of for the second half of this year, and really just taking stock of, do what you know works. Be open to the suggestions and, for lack of a better word, promptings of things to incorporate into that. But don't try to do something totally different than what you've already seen success with.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot to be said too about change. Feels like everything needs to change to make it work, and that isn't always the case. I'll tell you, so speaking of letting go of things, for all of you that know me, and I know Jennifer, you'll appreciate this, I let go of my Cricut and all of my Cricut supplies. Okay?
You did?
I did. For
Wow.
next to nothing, for pennies on the dollar compared to what and I for those of you who don't know, I had quite the Cricut supply cache, everything. Fake tattoos, fabrics, stickers, marker, the whole, and name it, I have it. It's fine. Tons of vinyls. And I let go of it because, I was talking to Ben, and we've been talking about trying to really focus on what we want as a goal. And we want to be able to live a life where we can travel and we can see things and experience things more than feel like we have to like be trapped down, right?
Right.
And, I kind of was thinking about it. I was like, man, it's crazy. I have an entire craft room, and I have yet to craft anything really without a specific purpose, just for the love of creating. I love to create. It is innately in me. It is a thing that I adore. But I had quit doing it because the idea and the need to have all the things to create had then debilitated me from actually going up and having the freedom to do it. There was so much decision to be made, so much mess to have to do. Like, it was overwhelming, and it had actually stopped me from even using those things that I had put so much value and weight in. And believe it or not, I got rid of my Cricut and I have been sewing up a storm, made a new apron, made a new blanket. I went back to like the craft that got me in to the love of creation. And I
Yeah.
have been doing that, just having released this like need to have the things. And it was incredible. And that was really liberating in an insane way. I couldn't have predicted what that would have offered me. And like, had you told me 6 months ago, Ashleigh, you're going to sell your Cricut and all of your Cricut supplies for nothing, I would have laughed in your face. I would have been like, no, they will bury me with that. Like, King Tut may have a year's worth of food. I'm going to have my Cricut supplies.
Yeah.
But I was so wrong. Those were weighing me down. They were keeping me from actually doing the things that I wanted to do. And I was just too blind to have seen that. And it was really liberating. So, you know, again, when it talks about letting go, that comes sometimes in the most surprising ways. You know, and you know, we can talk about this in the realm of forgiveness, right? Letting go of emotional baggage, right? Having forgiveness for people that have done stuff for us, that being mad at them doesn't serve you and it doesn't make them any better, right?
Well, it
You know,
doesn't hurt
being
them either. You can be mad at them and they don't know you're mad.
right. And I like to harbor the illusion that the idea is when you're hurt by somebody, it's because you expected better of them, right?
Right.
And so the idea would be the only reason for you to be upset is either you had an unreasonable expectation or they didn't meet an expectation that was reasonable, in which case you should be able to articulate, have that conversation with them, not just walk around livid and angry. That fixes nothing. So again, some of it's just letting go of either expectation or anger or the fear of saying something and setting a boundary that you don't know that you can prioritize yourself in. Like, you can let go of all of that and continue to walk through your world and have so much more come to you. Like, that is a huge space. You know, like I talk about with my Cricut, I didn't realize how much space that thing and those things held. Not even just physically, right? Physically, it was a concernable amount, y'all. But emotionally, that had taken up so much space. I had like conformed a portion of my identity with this thing. And man, if we can free up that space, it's incredible what suddenly starts to come back into you and what you start to see, where your strengths come from when you give up the things that you are strangle holding to try and keep an illusion of.
Right. So I think that a question for our listeners, right, is what are you ready to stop carrying? What are
Oh,
you
yeah.
ready to put down as you're going into whatever part of the year it is when you hear this? What are you ready to put down and stop carrying around as you move forward? Would love to see comments in the show notes or wherever you're finding this platform. We'd love to see some comments on that.
Yeah, we would love to hear what everybody is willing to change, let go of, or what have you let go of. Maybe as you reflect and take this time, you might have that aha moment of what is it that you didn't realize maybe you'd let go of.
Right. And so it brings me to, you know, the question, are we chasing the right things right now? I think, you know, mid-year is also a good year or a good time to kind of assess whether our goals or the goals that we're pursuing are the right goals. So, you know, what's important is that, you know, because we change, life changes, circumstances change, and it's
Yeah.
important to make sure that we're still carrying the right things going forward.
And even if that shifts, even if it's not what it was in January, that's okay if you know it's what's right.
You know, and it's really interesting that there's so much wisdom in recognizing it, right? When we continue to pursue something simply because we're already invested in it, like say your Cricut,
Yeah.
how much energy is actually going into that thing without you even recognizing that it was sucking up your energy and sucking up your creativity just because it was there, right?
Yeah.
That thing. So let's think through, you know, what are you chasing right now? And for me, I'm going to always bring this back to, obviously I'm chasing my family. I adore my family, love them dearly. We just had another grandson born on what was it, June 11th, he was born. He came several weeks early, and of course, that's always a distraction for me. It's hard for me to stay focused when there's so many sweet little babies running around. So, but the thing that I really am chasing, and I've mentioned to you before we kind of started recording today, is I am absolutely chasing growth and production in my business this year. I kind of took my eye off the ball because I have kind of a new role in leadership, and I've decided, right now it is time to lead by example,
Yeah.
and and to just get serious about bringing in new clients, and showing my junior advisors really how to have those conversations, right? There's no reason to, we make it so much more difficult than it has to be. We get scared about things, and I include myself in that, right? I make it
Yeah.
harder than it has to be a lot of times, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so that, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but that really
No,
is
no.
what I'm chasing right now um, is production.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm in a really interesting space. Again, it's changed so much in the last 6 months. And, you know, earlier this year, I was really chasing a lot of self interested goals. And, I wanted to have my own thing. I wanted to have my business venture. I wanted to do these things. And I was really kind of isolating myself away from something that I foundationally believe, right? And that's taken a huge shift over the last few months of like, now I am very much chasing and focusing on what feels right,
Hmm.
right? It doesn't feel right to not be in complete unison with my husband, right? It doesn't feel right to not know what's happening in my kids' lives. It doesn't feel right to be separated from those things that matter so incredibly much. And so I have
Right.
done a huge shift of like, no, now we're back focusing on how do we all as a unit find success? How do we as a unit all have experiences and find joy? And, there has to be a balance to everything. For every joy, you've got to have a little bit of pain or sacrifice. But, as a family, you can do that. You create community through that.
Yeah.
And so just trying to realign and refocus, and especially with a kid out of state right now, that's been a real interesting pivot of
Yeah.
you don't realize how much you take connection and physical nearness for granted until it's
Yeah.
not there anymore. And suddenly you have to put intention into making those things work. And, you know, hard lessons, but so worth it. Don't think I would go back. Don't think I would change any of it. I really think that, like I said, we're on this path of like intuitive following, not chasing anything because there's a dollar value or
Right.
a clout attached to it, only chasing things that feel truly right and in alignment with what we're wanting.
Right.
And then chasing really open, honest communication, which I understand for everyone on here probably sounds hilarious that I am actually a terrible communicator. My kids and husband will be the first to tell you I am the worst communicator with interpersonal stuff. But really trying to chase that, like having true, transparent communication and understanding to where you can have those connections where you don't have to actually verbalize something. You can just understand where somebody's at because you've worked to build that relationship and that rapport.
Right. So sounds like chasing some of the definitely the right things. And what's interesting is uh, I think that I've just come out of a period in my life where that was really what I was chasing, right? Like my
Yeah.
mother was so sick, and Jay was sick, and we've had babies, and so it was all about chasing that family connection and making sure. I mean, that was definitely my priority. You want to keep these people alive because I love them, right?
Yeah.
And in chasing, not that that was a right thing or a wrong thing to chase, but in chasing all of that, I kind of have let some things slide. And now I am in a period where you're kind of coming out of chasing the things that I now need to chase, and you need to chase the family connection. And I'm coming out of, my family connections are solid, man. And
Right. Whereas I'm the opposite. I'm
yeah,
not necessarily the opposite. I'm very, very fortunate. My family is fantastic. At the same
yeah,
time, I was kind of trying to do this isolative maneuver of like, well, I'm going to find a sense of, I had security. I have all of these things. Like, what am I doing? Right.
Right.
And, it goes back to that cricket of like, but I had to have the thing, right? I had to hold the thing and make it mine. And once you let go of that, suddenly you have that opportunity then to refocus on what really matters in front of you.
Right. Right. So, can we talk about the wins that don't make social media?
Oh my gosh. Yes, please, let's do. Yes, because I am
So,
anti-social media these days, so I none of mine do.
so those may look like hard conversations that you finally had, boundaries that
Yes.
you finally set, habits that you finally changed, or relationships that you've repaired. I know that's something that you've been doing a lot of relationship building. Maybe it's courage that you showed, or grief that you survived, or seasons that you endured. And I think that a lot of times those things we don't take time to recognize them, let alone blast them out on social media because
Yeah.
a lot of them are very very personal, right? So what are your some of win, blah, blah, blah. What are some of your wins? I have not mastered my tongue yet, clearly. I think I reference that in every time we're
I
talking
do
because
think it's like an
tongue
every
tied.
episode thing we do now.
Sorry, and
Um,
I haven't talked about hormones yet.
I, but we're coming. It's coming.
Yeah,
Um,
hopefully that was all the only mention.
yeah.
So anyway,
So
back to little wins or big
yeah,
wins.
I mean, little wins. I definitely think I've gone back to cooking a lot more, which I sound so silly. I really like cooking. It's
Yeah.
therapeutic. It's an expression of love and care. It was something that despite all of the craziness in my childhood, my parents always cooked. It was just, and that really meant a lot. And so one of the things that I have really tried to focus on is making like from scratch whole foods for my family.
Mm.
Every meal that makes sense. Last night we got teriyaki madness, so like, all right, we're doing okay where we can. But other than that, like really trying to be present in that expression of love and care and caretaking. We talk a lot about stepping into the feminine, right? And allowing yourself to be a woman and like embracing that, not having to be combative or not having to stand your ground or whatever that looks like. This is what that looks like to me. Like I said, I made a new apron, which is weirdly symbolic for me, and I've been wearing it and cooking in the kitchen and got one of my kids to try a tomato. Didn't like it,
Nice.
but we tried, and we'll take the wins where we can. What about you, Jen?
In kind of listing those wins out, I think that the one that is coming to my mind most meaningfully right now is having some hard conversations. And I have to really credit my youngest son. And the conversations aren't hard conversations really, but they're ones that are maybe a little bit awkward, as we're kind of walking through it, or it's generated because of an awkward situation. And I think I don't know if I've mentioned it on here, but talking about I'm done, right? At the end of the day, I'm working. I'll be here in the office until like 7 o'clock this afternoon or this evening, and by the time I get home, I am done. And I reference like I want to be Adam Sandler. I want to put my PJs on and just sit on the couch like a potato because I'm just done. And Mace starts work very early and needs, he when by the time he's ready to socialize, it's about that time of night. And so
Yeah.
I know this is ringing true for you or ringing a bell to you because I know I've told you the story, but having a conversation around me asking me to go run some errands with him, and I am like, dude,
I'm worn out.
why? Why do you need me to do that? I mean, I'll go with you if you need me to, but why do you want me to? And him saying, because mom, this is where I get to spend time with you. And this is how I want to spend time with you because I haven't seen you all day and I want to spend a little bit of time with you. And if we can do it during this time that I'm still awake and you're still awake, that's great. Otherwise, we're not going to get it done. Right.
Yeah.
And so, totally summarizing that, but that was a little bit of an awkward, but very eye opening conversation that I am so grateful to him for having, first of all, having the wisdom to be able to articulate that and trusting me with holding space for him to say what he needed to say and not being like, whatever, Mace.
Yeah.
So I think that those have been wins for me. I think it talks about setting boundaries. I think I've done a pretty good job of setting some boundaries that aren't incredibly intrusive to other people, but definitely help me respect my time more.
Yeah, on
Um,
that, I'm learning how to abide by boundaries much
mhm.
more right now. How to read when I am encroaching somebody's
Oh,
boundaries that
yeah,
I should know are there, but I have a tendency to, for some reason, just really want to keep pushing. So I'm having to learn how to no, stop. That's a
yeah,
boundary for a reason.
yeah, yeah. So wins, I think those are important. Any other win that you want to celebrate?
No, not, I mean, there's probably tons, but I will say
Right.
that before we do go on, if again, calls to action, what wins do y'all have? What have you had a success in? And like, leave us a comment. Let us know. We want to celebrate with y'all. Even if it's just, hey, you got up when your alarm went off the first time. That is a win.
I
And
did
like,
that
I am
today.
saying that. I'm not trying to point anybody out here. I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm just speaking
Right.
from experience, right? We all have that one alarm that goes off at the time we think we're going to get up, and then we all have the time we get up, right? So, like, even if it's something that small, we want to celebrate with y'all and share those little moments of successes that, no, aren't going to get you followers on social media, but you know what? Will get you a silent celebration from us.
But you know what? The thing is that they're real, right? So sharing maybe that,
Yes.
hey, I got up out of bed the first time my alarm went off for the first time in 3 months. That my people would relate to that. I'm not suggesting that you share it, but people would relate to it. So
It is because it's real.
it is. It is. It totally is. So yeah, please share your thoughts and remarks on that. I would love to, like you, Ashley. I would love to see kind of what has happened. Um,
Yeah.
and then looking ahead, the first half of the year, if it's taught us anything, is that life rarely follows our plan, right?
I mean, that is the truth, right? What is it they say? If you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans.
Right. Um, and I think that doesn't mean we should stop planning, right? It means
No.
that we have to plan with wisdom and flexibility and humility. And,
Yeah.
um, because goals aren't perfection, the goal isn't perfection, and the goal really is more about becoming aligned and just becoming, right?
100%. And
Um,
I this year had started. So I've been trying to journal a lot,
mhm,
but this year I wrote myself a eulogy for my former
right.
self. Right? We'd talked about this
Yeah.
off air, between you and I as friends, and that was incredibly profound for me to have done. And so, I'm a big proponent of talking to my past and future self. And sometimes I need to offer my past self a little bit of grace because I'm really hard on myself. And, if it would benefit you, what would you tell yourself in January? Not giving yourself guidance, not, but what would you say, hey, you can do this, or hey, it's going to be okay? Like, what would you tell yourself now, knowing what you now know now, back in January, just to give you that little bit of like grace and love and compassion and understanding and motivation to keep going?
I think I think what I would tell myself, in June or July, um, is, what I look being here and looking back, what I would tell myself in January as I approach this year is, you know, stay focused on your goals, right? Stay focused on your fire horse year. Obviously I can't go back and redo any of that, but I think that the that's a great question. What would we tell ourselves? I think for me, it would also be on the encouraging side. It would be, you know, it's going to work out. Like it's going to be slow. The progress will be slow. The horse is not quite on fire yet, but
Embers,
just stay
embers.
in
We
the
need that. It
saddle.
needs
Stay
air.
in
It
the
needs
saddle.
air.
You got to be moving. If you're going to catch
Yeah,
fire, you got to have air. So I
I
think
hear
that
you.
that's really what I would tell myself. What
I don't
about
know.
you?
I think mine would be something along the lines of like, I know you harbor the illusion that everything is a fight, but you don't have to make it so.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just hear.
Yeah, choose your battles, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to choose every battle. You don't have to
Yeah,
battle
I
every
ain't got to RSVP to the crazy train. Believe it or not, I'm just figuring this out, y'all. Like, I pretty sure they've got a stack of RSVPs from me, and I am ready to get off.
I have a magnet on my fridge. I think you've seen it that says, "Hey, train wreck," or whatever it is. This is not your stop. This is not your station.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I love it. I'm a big fan of things like that, and just the subtle reminders to ourselves of like, we do still have a sense of autonomy in how we choose to move forward. And even in circumstances where you don't feel like you have a choice, there is always a sense of autonomous choice that we as people have, whether it's how you face something, how you approach it, whether you see it as a failure or a pivot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those little things, those can make a huge difference in how we view the lessons of the last 6 months and the lessons of the next 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, as we kind of close this particular conversation, kind of the mid-year check-in, it's not a scorecard or report card, but just a few honest questions that we should spend some time in pondering. And that is, what has the year taught you? What is the year taken from you? And what is the year given you? Again, what are you ready to release? And what deserves your attention during the next 6 months?
Whoa, these feel like rapid fires.
Which question kind of strikes you the most, Ash?
I really feel like, what has this year given you? I'm really trying to be in that space of like,
Yeah.
really looking at things through a different lens. And this year so far has given me opportunity, understanding, empathy in a new light. Not that I'm an unempathetic person by nature, but just
Right.
really a different perspective on some of it. What about you?
I think the same. Yeah, or the one that kind of came to my mind for you is what has the year taken from you, and that's your cricket.
I know,
You know,
yeah, but
and
but here's the thing. I feel like I gave that, right? I made
yeah,
that
yeah,
choice, and it was hard, but
yeah,
I did it. So I'm choosing that as like something I took from the year. I took that. I took my freedom. I took that
yeah,
lack of baggage. I
yeah.
took that debilitating need for that thing back from my year.
I think the question that probably means the most to me, or the one that I will spend my most time really examining, is what deserves your attention during the
Yeah.
next 6 months. And I think that I know what I think deserves my attention. Um, my knowing knows, and I just need to probably sit down and ask my knowing a little more. And I know that's all woo woo stuff that if you haven't heard me talk about it before, you don't know what I'm talking about.
No,
But
it's so
like,
real.
my knowing knows where I need to put my focus over the next 6 months, and that's
100%.
something that I need to really spend some time in that space. And the year isn't over, the story isn't finished, and we're not behind. We're
Hopefully.
just simply in the middle, right?
Yeah. And that's the most important, where the most important growth can come from.
Yeah, yeah. So it's important that we keep going and keep learning. And as we kind of wrap up here, I want to, thank you for being here with us, all you listeners.
And if something came up for you in this conversation,
Don't
don't
ignore
ignore it.
it.
Sit with it. There you go.
Write it down or talk it through with somebody you trust.
And if you want a space to have these conversations in real life,
You can join us at Whirl. We'd love to have you there. We meet every Friday from 8:30 to 10 at the Rethink Wealth Building, 10801 North Mopac Expressway. We're in Building 1, Suite 350 here in Austin. And you just get to the third floor and then follow the noise. We are not meeting on Friday, this coming Friday, because of
new
Independence
national
Day.
holiday.
Yeah, well, Independence Day. And so
They gave us the third.
they did?
Yeah, the third got made a national holiday. And funny enough, for anyone who does care, on the 4th is FIFA. The U.S. is playing England in Philadelphia just
Ooh.
for anybody who's into the interesting intrigue of how that might play out. So, you know,
That might be a really fun way to spend the day. All right, so
revolutionary, some might say.
revolutionary. You're funny. I hear what you're putting down here. Um, Also, I want to say it kind of looks like we're moving if you come into the building right now because we are getting ready to host a really cool series of events, Dining in the Dark. So when you see the front of my office, it looks like it's empty because we tore down all the cubicles.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to end up putting some dining tables out there. And the kind of the thought process is behind it, dining in the dark. You don't have to make financial decisions in the dark. And so I am super excited about that. You'll probably hear more about it over the next coming weeks, and would love to have you come and join that event. But in the meantime, if you want to hang out, please come and see us at the World event every Friday morning.
And we'll see you next time.